In the beginning, there was nothing. From east to west, from north to south, there was just nothingness. After many, many years, a dense and heavy cloud appeared, creating a double bolt of lightning. From the infinite curtain of clouds, rain started, which kept falling for a long time, until it became a boundless sea. In the sea, all of today's elements were created. Gold, silver, copper and iron were made in the depths of the sea. After that, mountain peaks broke through from the sea. This stylized Eastern legend beautifully depicts ancient beliefs about the beginning of the world. With some variations in description, the essence of this story is a part of almost all of today's religions. In my travels and explorations of all of the 7 continents, I have discovered that almost all high mountains played an important part in the creation of today's beliefs. Most known religions placed their deities on mountain peaks. Olympus, Kailas, Fujiyama are only some of the mythical highlands which were the dwelling places of the highest gods and goddesses. In order to uncover the puzzle of the sacred places, I start from Tibet and the Himalayas, through the Caucasus, the Alps, the biblical places of Sinai and the Middle East. Then over the highlands of the East African Rift Valley, the volcanic islands of the Pacific, Japan, Australia. The goal of my expeditions were mountain regions of the Alps, Asia Minor, the Himalayas, China, Japan, Oceania and America, or better yet, of the whole world. Researching the origins of ancient religions, myths and cults leads to very interesting conclusions which reach the very roots of the development of our civilization. Many experts agree that most beliefs stem from the same or at least very similar sources, no matter what religion, myth, cult or part of the world we talk about. Most myths have no strict geographical or historical boundaries. For example, the biblical myth of the Genesis and the Great Flood is to be found in almost all corners of the world. The essence of the story is often similar. Names of heroes and places are usually the only things that differ. Most traces of old beliefs have been preserved in shrines and remote villages around the sacred mountains. Fortunately, the people living near them still keep the ancient beliefs and rituals alive. During my travels to the most sacred of peaks, I have enjoyed seeing various places, people and their rituals. In these travels, I have tried to follow the threads which bind together seemingly irreconcilable cultural differences. I was often haunted by the question of how much truth there is in the saying that the ancient world was much more connected than we today presume. The powerful presence of the mountains, their grandness and perfection of shape, must have influenced the creation of the early beliefs. One of the best explanations as to why mountains are worshipped was given by the Buddhist author Lama Angarika Govinda. The power of such a mountain is so great and yet so subtle that without compulsion, people are drawn to it from near and far, as if by the force of some invisible magnet. They will undergo untold hardships and privations in their inexplicable urge to approach and to worship the center of this sacred power. Nobody conferred the title of sacredness to a mountain. Nobody has to defend its claim because nobody doubts it. Nobody has to organize its worship because people are overwhelmed by the mere presence of such mountains and cannot express their feelings other than by worship. Humans were not always the masters of the earth. The first people had enough food, but they could easily have fallen prey to more powerful predators. It is thus no wonder that many ancient beliefs were of an animistic nature. The strength of some animals was supernatural. Prehistoric man was very vulnerable and unprotected. His earliest dwellings were natural shelters, caves, and niches. It's not hard to imagine what kind of power these people attributed to natural disasters eons of years ago. Meteor showers, volcanoes, earthquakes, storms, lightning all powerfully influenced the creation of man's early beliefs. Even today, natural disasters, extreme cold, floods, fires are said to be the workings of the supernatural powers or God. Even modern man, when exposed to sudden danger, can't help but feel that it's the end of the world or God's punishment. He will at least be amazed at the infinite power of nature. Seen from a distance, mountains offer a vision of something pure and eternal, untouched by the corruption of time. Their presence, like an old writing in the Upanishads, can create a feeling of transcendence. Before them, it seems like all things intertwine, real and imagined, light and dark, life and death. The mountains have been created by the hand of God. Above them is only the sky. That is God, the only one who affects the eternal change of things and living beings. From a height, he follows all things as they are born, pass and die. I roll the Buddhist prayer drums and remember one of the many recurring mantras, Om Mani Padme Hum. Beauty is in the lotus flower. Other religions have also developed their prayers, rituals and symbols which often intertwine, no matter where and when they were created. As a Roman Catholic, I often didn't understand their rituals, but was deeply affected by them. In my heart, they left an impression of the unity of all people, despite the seemingly great differences. At first sight, they are huge: race, language, symbols, rituals. However, all these pilgrims are looking up at the sky. Sacred mountains like heavenly ladders rise up towards it. Shiva lived in the mountain peaks of the Himalayas. In some versions he is called Dias, similar to the Greek god Zeus, who lived on Mount Olympus. Many historians have thus been led to believe that today's religions spring from the same source. Even in pre-Christian Europe, mountains were considered sacred. The Bible tells us that God made a covenant with the Israelites on the top of a mountain. In South America, the Incas believed that the mountain peaks were gods, so they offered them various sacrifices, including human. African tribes also believe in the holiness and power of mountains. The Australian Aborigines consider them sacred sites as well. Mount Fuji is a spiritual, historical and modern symbol of Japan. The highest peak of North America was considered sacred by the natives. They called it Denali, which in Athabascan means the High One. Through history, mountains were sanctuaries when the populace came under attack by belligerent groups. Ruins in just such inaccessible mountainous regions tell us that those were the sites where the people upheld their faith, which was often connected to their cultural development. Sacred mountains are a favourite with those who worship the cult of the high places, even more so if they are isolate, like island mountains, snow-capped mountains, or if they are in uninhabited regions. psychological movements of the cults of high places are based on the belief that mountains are close to heaven and that the clouds surrounding them are in fact makers of rain. It is also believed that volcanoes are the fiery entrances to the Earth's core. Thus, mountains are the dwelling places of gods, the centre of the departed ones who are underground, the burial grounds of the rainmakers, and sites of prophecies for peacemakers. In the beginning of the cosmos and the world, or in the cosmogony of the myth, the mountains were the first parts of land that rose out of the water. They were often an example of the symbol of a cosmic mountain on top of which is a ruler. Pilgrimages to mountain shrines are in fact the worship of the cult of high places. Today's climbing expeditions, besides being motivated by sport, are often an expression of the need to rise above the mundane. When they reach the top, climbers have a heavenly feeling because the world is at their feet. The mountain is often the centre, the axis or the belly of the world. For the old Greeks, that was the Parnassus over the Delphos. In Australia, it is the granite monument of Uluru. Kailas in Tibet is still the axis of the world for the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Jainists and the Bon followers. For the Navajo Indians, it is the San Francisco Peaks in Arizona. In Ireland, it's Kilpatrick. For Jews, Christians and Muslims, Mount Zion is important as the origin on which Jerusalem was built. In the early civilizations, the cult of the high places was combined with the sites on Earth, much like the Greek Olympus, the mountain of Mother Kibala in Asia or the Meru in India, where according to beliefs the mountain supporting the sky was placed. Why do people consider mountains sacred?
High mountain means to say very open, now sky, only sky. So that's helpful, is to remain or to maintain sort of alertness of mind.
The locals didn't used to dare head towards the dwellings of gods, but the development of alpinism changed those centuries-old beliefs. In the beginning, the locals were just carriers and guides, and later on equal participants who often reached the very top. They still tried to honour their old beliefs. The Sherpas perform age-old rituals before every climb, praying for the mercy of the gods during the stay in their kingdom.
A lot of Sherpa people, they are talking, okay, if you climb, not touch to the top of the mountain, because the top is like a god. We must not to step on the head of the god.
In another part of the world in Mexico lives Carlos Carsolio, a friend of mine. He is one of the world's most successful alpinists. Standing here on top of the Nevado de Toluca volcano, he tells me of the local beliefs here under the highest volcanoes.
People from the villages who still keep their ancient rites, they still come and believe and do some offerings to the mountain. But now in these times the offerings is food, especially corn and fruits and sweets to the gods of the mountain, but also they mix with Catholic religion.
In many coastal mountains of the Mediterranean, people and believers still celebrate their patron saint's day once a year. In some places, Christian tradition mixes with earlier pagan rituals. The mountain tops of the Himalayas are, according to Hindu and Buddhist beliefs, the dwelling places of gods. This is why the Sherpa hosts, who are Buddhists, have to ask for mercy before entering their sacred empire. Alpinists from Christian countries are happy to participate in the Buddhist rituals. My friend Thomas Humar, one of today's leading climbers, although a Catholic, always joins these rituals wholeheartedly. He is one of those who believe that this is just one more way to attain the same goal, that of worshipping God. Tomas's climbs to some of the highest mountains are truly heroic endeavors of our time. However, before shooting material for this show, Tomas suddenly had a serious accident. He fell in the basement while building his new house in Slovenia. He suffered serious and life-threatening injuries. The recovery was long and full of uncertainty. Whenever possible, he would drive to the local chapel of the Moving Virgin. He believed that she could help him heal. Using his crutches, he climbed to the spot where the Virgin Mary appeared in Medjugorje in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Zdaj sem imel 5 operacij. Sam se potem stanje se malo zakompliciral, ker sem dobil pljučno embolijo, na začetku še maščobno in je vse skupaj že malo kritično izgledalo. Zdaj pa gre stvari počasi na boljše in upam, da se zdravje spet vrača, ne. Zato sem tudi tukaj v Medjugorju.
Although doctors predicted he'd be bound to his wheelchair for the rest of his life, after a year of recuperating, he returned to the mountains. Finally, at the end of our film shoot, Tomas joined my conquest of Mexico, where our mutual friend Kailas waited for us. Together, we climbed the local volcanoes which are still revered as sacred mountains.
We're in the mountain again! Yahoo!
There are mountains on Earth which haven't been considered sacred, not because they aren't high enough or their presence is indistinct compared to other places, but because it took humans a long time to actually see them. Not one mountain in Antarctica is considered sacred, but it won't stay that way for much longer. More and more people come to Antarctica to uncover the unseen and the seemingly supernatural, because no mountain massif can measure up compared to the Antarctic mountain range. Visitors agree this continent should be preserved pristine, as it was before our arrival. In Antarctica, climbers leave only their footprints in the snow. They take back everything they bring, including urine. In that sense, Antarctic peaks become cleaner and even more sacred than others. For the few lucky climbers, nothing comes even close to this feeling. This is an extraordinary game humans play with nature, or better yet, this is their union with it. Climbing towards an unclimbed Antarctic mountain peak, I really have a feeling like I'm climbing the stairway to heaven, because everything becomes very far away from me and deep under me.
Yoo-hoo!
That's why the feeling of being on top of the world is one of immense happiness. What makes me even happier is the knowledge that the timeless beauty and the limitless power of these mountain peaks will stay virginal, or better yet sacred, even when we're gone.